mathematicians, so we're going to go ahead and go over some questions where you might be asked questions about the opposite and the absolute value. All right, number 1 was actually on a STAR test, so let's go ahead and look at it together. It says George wrote an integer. The opposite of George's integer was negative 53. Which of these statements about George's integer must be true? Statement 1, the integer is 53. Statement 2, the integer has an absolute value of negative 53. Statement 3, the integer is negative 53. And statement 4, the integer has an absolute value of 53. And then they give you 4 answer choices that are different combinations of those statements. Okay, so let's go back and think about what we have to know. So we know he wrote an integer, right? So that means we know it's got to be a whole number or its opposite. And it tells us the opposite of George's integer is negative 53. So to figure out what the integer is, remember the opposite of a positive is a negative. So if the integer is a negative 53, what is the opposite of a negative 53? It is a positive 53. Okay, so let's read these and see which statement is true. Whenever they ask you a true or false or which one is the best answer or valid, you need to look at each one and determine whether each one is true or false. And I suggest putting T's and F's next to them. Okay, so the integer is 53. Okay, so that's what we determined. So that's going to be true. The integer has an absolute value of 53. So the absolute value of negative 53. So if we know the integer is 53, well, what's the absolute value of 53? The distance. Remember, absolute value is the distance to 0. Well, the distance is, it's 53 away. Okay, and remember, no absolute values can be negative. Okay, because distance can't be negative. So this statement is false. The integer is negative 53. No, the opposite of the integer is negative 53. So the integer is not negative 53. That's false. The integer has an absolute value of 53. So we figured that out here, right? The absolute value of 53 is 53. So this statement is true. So we're looking for 1 and 4. So D is correct. Okay, this is a great strategy. This true-false strategy is a great strategy to use in any content area and to determine if statements are true or false. It prevents you from making a mistake. All right, number 2. 4 students wrote a comparison statement. Okay, so we've got less than, greater than, greater than. Which statement is not true? So that means that 3 are true and 1 is false. So we're going to kind of do the same thing here. We're going to do trues and falses here. Okay, so negative 23 is less than the absolute value of negative 22. So the absolute value of negative 22 is positive 22. So is negative 23 less than a positive 22? Yes, it is. If you struggle with your inequality signs, if you put a dot there and then 2 dots on the other side, you can say that 1 is less than 2. So this is the less than sign because 1 is less than 2. So negative 23 is less than 22. All right, let's look at Jan. Jan has negative 7 is less than the absolute value of 6. So negative 7 is less than, what is the absolute value of 6? The absolute value of 6 is 6. So is negative 7 less than 6? Yes, it is. Same thing with the dots, right? If you want to use your dots, 1 is less than 2, so negative 7 is less than 6. So that is true. Oh, this one they're trying to be tricky. Okay, this negative sign is on the outside, so it has to stay there. Okay, we don't switch that, or we don't make that a positive because the absolute value of 15 is just in the middle. So you just bring that negative over, and then the absolute value of 15 is 15. So negative 15 is greater than negative 13. Okay, and so if you do your dots right, 2 dots is greater than 1 dot. So that's the greater than sign. So negative 15 is greater than negative 13. So negative 15 is more to the left on your number line. So that means it's smaller. You can also say negative 15 is more negative than negative 13. So if it's more negative, that means it's smaller. So this is false. And then Maya or Mia, we've got negative 8 on the inside, so we're looking for the absolute value of negative 8. So the absolute value of negative 8 is 8, is greater than, this negative is on the outside, so negative absolute value of 8, absolute value is 8. So is 8 greater than negative 8? Yes, because it's positive. Okay, so Sarah's statement is not true. All right, pause the video and go ahead and try the rest of the questions by yourself and see how you do on those. Okay, number 3, Bill is thinking of a number. He says his number is the opposite of the absolute value of 12. What number is Bill thinking of? Okay, so we're going to take this one thing at a time. It says his number is the opposite of the absolute value of negative 12. So I have to evaluate this first. What is the absolute value of negative 12? The absolute value of negative 12 is 12. His number is the opposite of 12. Well, what is the opposite of 12? The opposite of 12 is negative 12. What? Look at these answer choices. Oh my goodness. Now I got to come over here and think too. All right, well, I know it's not 12. And I know it's not 12 minus 12 because that's 0. So it can't be that. And then the absolute value of 12 is 12. So I know that it's got to be the opposite of that. So it's got to be negative 12. Okay, so let's look at this one. We've got the negative on the outside. And then on the inside, this is the absolute value of negative 12. And the absolute value of negative 12 is 12. So I'll just bring this over. That stays. And so A is our answer because that is equal to negative 12. Okay, number 4. What integer is the opposite of the value of point U on the number line? What integer is the opposite of the value of point U? Okay, so what is the value of point U? All right, so I'm going to go here to U. Ugh, now we got to figure out what each one of these is. Oh, that's not hard because we've got a space, 2, 4, so that means this is 1, 2, 3. All right, so this is 1. So what integer is the opposite of 1? What integer is the opposite of 1? The opposite of 1 is negative 1. Okay, so let's go ahead and grid that. So we've got a negative, and it's a 1. Now, remember, it's good to learn from your mistake, but it's better to learn from other people's mistakes, right? So a common mistake with this, we know our answer is negative 1. Kids want to do the negative and then put the answer right next to it. But remember, this chart has everything to do with place value, okay? And our place value is not changing, okay? This one is tenths, hundredths. This is ones, tens, hundreds, right? And thousands, right? So if we have a negative 1, what place value is that 1 in? It's in the ones place. So we have to put it in the ones place value, okay? So negative 1. So don't get, watch out for that common error that kids make because they do the negative. They just want to put the 1 right there. Like it's right there, so why not just bowl that in, right? But don't forget about your place value. You have to put it in the right place value. Okay, if you put it over here, you're saying 1 thousandths with nothing behind it. That wouldn't make sense. Okay, so negative 1. Okay, number 5. If the absolute value of k is 16, which values for k are true? Okay, so the absolute value of k is 16. So what number can be in here? Could 16 be in here and this be true? Yes. I should have done this by these, right? If I put 0 here, would that be true? I'm going to put a true right there. If I put Absolute value of 0 is 16. No, that's false. All right, absolute value of negative 16. Those little pink dots are from the other side. Sorry about that, guys. So the absolute value of negative 16, does that equal 16? Yep, that's true. And then the absolute value of 4, does the absolute value of 4 equal 16? No, that is false. So 1 and 3 are correct. So that would be C. Number 6. Miss Williams is thinking of two numbers. She gave clues to her students. The numbers are opposites. The absolute value of the number is 15. What are the two numbers Miss Williams is thinking of? That's a typo. What are the two numbers Miss Williams is thinking of? The numbers are opposites. Okay, that's the first thing I'm going to go with. I'm just going to eliminate. Are these opposites? Nope. Are these opposites? Nope. Are these opposites? Yes. Are these opposites? Nope. The absolute value of the numbers is 15. The absolute value of negative 15, oops. The absolute value of negative 15 is 15. And the absolute value of 15 is 15. So that's true. So our answer is C.